hills. Ain't no smoggy smoke on Rocky Top. Ain't no telephone bills. Once I had a girl on Rocky Top. That's where the other left get.
Yeah, Rocky Top. Rocky Top, we have to call you back. Now, don't worry. You'll always be home sweet home. Yeah, same here. Oh, hey. I was just talking to Rocky Top there because I grew up on Rocky Top. Actually, I grew up on Signal Mountain in Tennessee, wearing my favorite UT t-shirt, because there is a story behind it. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Grabenstein, and I graduated from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville in 1977. And now I write books here in New York City. I wrote a book, a lot of you kids might remember, Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, which was turned into a movie that's on, you can get it now, I think on Netflix and Amazon. Yeah, there was a movie for Nickelodeon. I've also written a bunch of books with James Patterson, like I, Funny, Jackie, Haha, and stuff. Now, if you have questions, you can type them into the comments, which, Noelle is happy to be watching. It looks like the comments are working. Noelle, you get a special certificate for being the first one to comment. So I grew up on Signal Mountain, Tennessee. I went to Notre Dame High School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Then in 1973, I moved to Knoxville, and I went to UT. And I remember my first day there, I went to the UT Theater, and I said, if I could just do one play here, that would be so cool. And I went to the back of the Clarence Brown Theater. They were rehearsing this big Shakespeare play. And I said, if only I could do one play here. And before I left the University of Tennessee, I think I did like 50, and I was digging through some old pictures here. This is me. I think that was born yesterday. That's back when I had to wear makeup to look old. There you go. I had to put the shoe polish in my hair to get the gray hair going there. And then this was done with this. We did South Pacific up at Hunter Hills Theater up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I believe I was the chubbiest sailor in the Navy, in the World War II Navy. And for folks who've read some of my books and wonder, where does the name Chumley Prep? Like my wife and I wrote a book called Shine, wrong hand, Shine. And Chumley Prep is the star of that. That all comes from years ago, back in Knoxville, Tennessee, I did a play called Harvey. And there was a character in there named Dr. Chumley. And ever since then, all the prep schools in my books have been called Chumley Prep. Now, when I went to UT, I majored in communications, broadcasting, journalism, advertising. I got another picture here. And I remember, this is why my wife and I, we sponsor the Lemoncello Library Scholarship at UT Knoxville, because scholarships helped me a lot. I got the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters Scholarship. That's me. That's when I was a disc jockey at W149. I was playing the hits while you're spraying your pits. We used to say that in the morning sometimes. And I also was an editor at the UT Daily Beacon. I was the entertainment editor, and I wrote a column every once in a while. I wrote a column like twice a week. And I dug up some of those old ones. This was something I did. I also drew cartoons. This was a cartoon and thing I did for the Phoenix. So a lot of the writing that I'm doing now all started at UT Knoxville, because the Daily Beacon, as most of you know, comes out every morning. It had to be there at the cafeterias at the crack of dawn. So we had deadlines. I think it was like 4:00 in the afternoon. We had to have our stories done. And I always tell young writers, if you really want to be a writer, find something where you have a deadline, because that's a great way to get over writer's block, is to have a deadline. See some questions coming in over there. Peter Andre is saying hello. Peter was one of my roommates when I went to UT. We had a house in Fort Sanders that was actually just up the block from W149. So I used to go down there and just walk down the house. Let's see. CJ wants to know. Hi, CJ. How you doing? My major was communications, which was journalism, advertising, broadcasting. My concentration was in broadcasting production, and I spent all my time acting in plays at the theater. And, that's another great thing. I think it's helped me as a writer, because if you think about it, theater is all character and dialogue. So if you act in plays, or even if you just work backstage and sort of soak some of that up, you'll get a good sense of like what makes that character different than the other characters on the stage. And the whole story is told mostly through dialogue. So that'll help you develop your dialogue skills. So I spent all my time at the theater, and I got my degree in journalism. Let's see here. Everybody say howdy. Go Vols. Awesome t-shirt. Yes, everybody knows the story of this t-shirt, right? This is the kid who got bullied and made his own t-shirt. And then I was so happy to be a Vol that day when I found out that UT was making their own version of the t-shirts. Sarah Jones loves my books. Well, that's great to hear. Thank you. There's some new ones coming out. Let's see. The next Lemoncello book will be coming out in August. And then in November, a whole new series is going to start called The Smartest Kid in the Universe. And that was based on, I don't know if you guys ever watched TED Talks, but I watched a fascinating TED Talk where this guy who's predicted everything from GPS to self-driving cars, to the fact that we'd be reading books and things on our phones. Well, they asked him what's going to happen in the next 20 years. And he said the next big thing would be ingestible knowledge. And I said, what if someone actually came up with a capsule that you could take and you would know everything about Shakespeare, or you would know how to speak Swahili? And what if they put those in jelly beans? And what if a kid was a bit of a slacker, ate a whole jar of those jelly beans and became the smartest kid in the universe? So that's kind of how I come up with stories and ideas here. And so far, there's been about 64 different books. Daily Beacon, All Hail the Crime Log. I don't remember the crime log. I mostly worked in the entertainment section, and then I had a column called Snickers. I sort of wrote, I think Art Buchwald was my hero back then, and I wanted to be like the next Dave Barry. So I would always write like funny commercials. Columns. Let's see here. Oh, we got the UT Knoxville alumni chapters here. Yes. Good. Sarah Jones is excited for the new books. That's great. There will be more coming all the time. The most recent one is Shine. I wrote that with my wife, and that has been doing quite well. It's all about a girl who's a fish out of water, who thinks she was just meant to blend into the background, never achieve anything, and all of a sudden she's thrust into this prep school, Chumley Prep, where everybody is an overachiever, and she finds out that everybody shines in their own way. And that's been a lot of fun talking to kids about that book around the country. All right, let's see if there's any questions over here about writing, that sort of stuff. Howdy. There we go again. Put this over here. The questions are over there. Oh, great. Yes, someone spies the torchbearer behind me there on my bookshelf. That was one of the thrills of my life. They made me a distinguished alumni, which was quite the honor, and they really gave that big statue. That was hard to get that back on the airplane. I had to buy it its own seat. It's that big of a statue, but it's kind of fun to have that here and to remind me, because it stands, the torchbearer, as most of you know, right in front of Circle Park there, right in front of the communications building. So I probably saw him every day of my 4 years at UT. And then after I studied at UT, I stayed there for another 2 years and worked at the Clarence Brown Theater. I think I taught too. I think they made me a graduate assistant in voice and diction. My wife will be surprised to hear that, since I mumble so much. But I was a graduate assistant. I would teach the lab classes. And then in 1979, the Clarence Brown Theater was a great way for a lot of us who wanted to act, or at least try to get our feet wet doing it. I got my Actors Equity card working with the professional Clarence Brown Company, and I packed up my 7 suitcases and typewriter. I had $1,000, and I had no job, no place to stay except my friend Bill Vitelli, who was in that. Here he is. This is my friend. My friend Bill Vitelli here, he played Luther Billis when we did South Pacific. He had already moved to New York City, and my buddy Ronnie Venable was already here. There were like 50 people in New York City already, all actors. And so I packed up everything. I had a one-way ticket to New York City. My father said, "What are you doing?" Because he was a chemical engineer and like rational choices in life. And my mother said, "Do it now, or you might regret it for the rest of your life." So I came up to New York, and I stayed with Vitelli for like a week or two, and then I found my own $300 a month apartment, which is impossible to find in New York City now. And I started doing improvisational comedy with a troupe down in Greenwich Village. We had a guy named Bruce Willis in our troupe. He shaved his head, moved to California. We don't know what happened to him. And the late Robin Williams, whenever he was in New York City, he would jump up on stage with us and perform with us, and we'd make up stories and songs. And I did that for like 5 years. And I said, I might want a job where I can be creative every day. didn't I study advertising back there at UT? So I actually went around looking for a job, and I ended up getting hired at the J. Walter Thompson Advertising Agency by the creative director there, a guy named James Patterson. If the name rings a bell, he went on to become the best-selling author in the history of the world. And I worked for him for like 4 or 5 years, and then I worked at Backer, Spielvogel, Bates. Then I ended my career at Young and Rubicam, and I was, I turned that off. That's James Patterson calling me there. Got some notes on whatever we're writing together. And that's my annoying ringtone there. So I met James Patterson, and now we write books together, and he calls me sometimes during Facebook Lives to give me suggestions. Let's see. Have I been writing more these days? Yes, actually, it's kind of interesting being on this shelter in place. It's kind of what authors do every day. I usually spend most of my day in this room anyhow, coming up with ideas, working on one of my books and one book with James Patterson. And so it really hasn't been that difficult. And we're fortunate here in New York City, things like groceries and whatnot are delivered. All right, who are all the Venables are great, aren't they? And he's been like my buddy since 1973, and his wife, Leanne. Ronnie Venable and I wrote a movie together called The Christmas Gift, starring John Denver. And it was first on CBS television way back in 1986. And it's still on TV every year, usually around the holidays, usually on the Hallmark Channel, and usually at 3 o'clock in the morning. And my mother is usually the only one still watching it, but it's still on TV. Who are my favorite authors? Well, I love Stephen King. I don't know why, maybe because I grew up with him. He's who I would read when I was in college. And I just finished listening to his Mr. Mercedes trilogy, because I go out for an hour walk every morning with my face mask on. And I've been listening to a lot of Stephen King stories. As far as kids' books go, I love Louis Sacker, very, very funny. Rebecca Stead is great. Grace Lynn is wonderful. Christopher Paul Curtis, if you can read Bud Not Buddy or The Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963, those are great books. What is my writing process like for books? Well, I think the most important thing, and I guess I did learn this at the University of Tennessee, working on that Daily Beacon, is you got to sit down and you've got to write every day. So that routine that I first started, where we'd go to the Beacon, like I remember we'd get there like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we'd sit down, we'd write our stories, the editors would look at, the copy editors, we had a set type, and but you always had a deadline. And so that got me into the habit of, these are the hours I'm going to sit down and write. And then when I got into advertising, I wrote in the mornings to coming up with commercials and things. And now that's exactly what I still do. I go for my walk, I listen to a story, I have ideas about what I'm going to write. Then I come in here every day and try to write 2,000 new words a day. And I start the day by going over the 2,000 words I wrote the day before. CJ, who's one of my best readers, by the way, and happy 11th birthday to CJ. Happy birthday to you. It's his birthday today. And my wife and I are amazing authors. Will we write another one together? Well, my wife, JJ, has been my secret weapon for many years. I've written 64 books. There they all are. 64 books in the past 15 years. And she reads all of them before anybody else. So we wrote Shine together, and we might do another one. I'm not really sure. Let's see what we got down here. Some more questions. Do you ever write books and characters for specific people in your life because you know they will enjoy them? Yeah. So I put my mother in a book. I got to use her in one of my adult mysteries. I put Christine Lemonopoulos into a book and made her a heroic nurse because my mother was a heroic nurse. And but I could use her name because that was her maiden name, and people didn't know that she was my mom. And I think Ronnie Venable is in one of the Treasure Hunters books. Jennifer Green, another friend from Knoxville, is in there. So yes, I sort of drop names in every now and then. Did I know Woody Page when he worked on the UT newspaper? Name sounds familiar, though I could be remembering Toy Story, and that's a different Woody. I'm not sure. Off topic, what is my favorite sport to root for at Tennessee? I'm going to have to say football, because up here in New York City, that's the one that we can watch on a semi-regular basis because of ESPN and CBS and stuff, so we can still kind of see them. And I actually kind of like the shots of the campus almost better than the games sometimes. When they're like, oh, I know that. I've been there. I know that place. Let's see. You're down here. Someone likes Kentucky. I think you're on the wrong Facebook page right now. Yes. Yes, Jake, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Here. Oh, good. You guys are saying some nice things about my books. Over fun. There are a lot of fun books for kids who are like me when I was a youngster. I did not like to read. I was what they call a reluctant reader. I like to think of myself as a super critical reader. I only wanted to read books that got like a movie started in my head. So I try to write page turners that will get kids, and the best emails I get are usually they're from parents who had given up on their kids ever wanting to read, and they write to me and say, my son or my daughter picked up one of your books, couldn't put it down, and when they were done with it, they asked for another one. So that is great. Someone's thank you for thanking me for coming to Farragut Intermediate School. That was fun. I got to go. I've been to Farragut, and have I been there twice? I've been to a couple different schools in Knoxville. I know that. I got to go to a bunch when a play that I wrote called Curiosity Cat was done by the Children's Theater of Knoxville. And then they also did, Ronnie Venable, my buddy, and I, we wrote a version of The Island of Dr. Libris, which is one of my books, and we turned that into a stage play, and it had its world premiere in Knoxville too. So every time I go back to Knoxville, I try to work in a couple school visits. And I think I'm supposed to go again this spring, but that ain't happening. All right. So if you have a question, let me know over here, and I will answer the question. It was fun for me going back. This was a story. Let me see if I can find this one here. Yes, this was a story that we did at the Beacon. I'm kind of surprised we got away with it. But I was a big fan of Orson Welles and his War of the Worlds, which was a big hoax that was done. So in the Beacon one day, we wrote a hoax about a witches' coven in Fort Sanders. And I remember I got my brother Jeff and my other brother Steve to pose for the picture. And we made it up. We said like in Knoxville Methodist Hospital. There is no Methodist hospital, only a Baptist hospital. So that was a lot of fun. That was like a funny hoax. That was my problem studying journalism. I wanted to write fictional stuff more than the real straight facts. But I did pretty good in journalism, I think. How often do I come back to Chattanooga? Well, my mom and dad left Chattanooga. I've got brothers. I got two brothers in Clarksville. One's in Oak Ridge there. If you need a good doctor, go see Jeff or his wife Diane, Oak Ridge Family Practice. And my other brother Steve is in Asheville. So we don't have any family left in Chattanooga. I went back to Chattanooga 2 summers ago because they made me a distinguished alumni. It was a year I was being made a distinguished alumni everywhere. And it was the same year I got all this gray in my hair. I think that's what distinguished means. And so I went back to Chattanooga. And what was really cool is in the book Shine, you'll meet a teacher named Mr. Van Duzen. And Mr. Van Duzen was my freshman English teacher in high school at Notre Dame High School in Chattanooga. And writing that book, my wife and I tried to recreate what it was like to be in a classroom with him. And I got to see him and got to send him a copy of the book. And that was really cool because, there are always teachers who change your life. Shaq Van Duzen was one of them. He's the one who introduced me to Shakespeare, Ernest Hemingway, and Mark Twain. I remember I went to high school, probably met Shaq Van Duzen in 1969, and a movie called Easy Rider had just come out about these guys get on motorcycles and they go across America. And we were reading Huckleberry Finn in freshman English class. And Mr. Van Duzen said, we're all going to go see Easy Rider. Get your parents to sign these permission slips because if Huck Finn was around today, he'd be on a motorcycle instead of a raft. So he was that kind of teacher, the one that made learning fun and kind of cool. And I had another teacher, Mrs. June Garrett at Signal Mountain Junior High School, which I guess is now junior middle high school, something or other. But she's the one who I used to have fun writing. That's why I think I ended up writing humor columns at the Daily Beacon. All the homework assignments I turned in when I was in junior high school were funny, and Mrs. Garrett loved to laugh. And she wrote in the margins of one of my papers, "You will make your living as a writer someday." And teachers have the power, because teachers are adults who are outside of a kid, who aren't their parents or their aunts or uncle, who can tell them something about themselves, and kids might actually believe it. So I actually believe that maybe I have some talent. And Mrs. Garrett, the third, or maybe it was the fourth, I can't remember, Limoncello book was dedicated to her memory. She's no longer with us, but I did, when I went back to Chattanooga that time, I did speak at Wilkes T. Thrasher Elementary School on Signal Mountain, Tennessee. Got to stand in front of the same blue curtain. They had the same blue curtain, got a few more stains on it than it did when I was there. But I got to present to the fifth graders there, and that's where I was a fifth and sixth grader. Which book did I have the most fun writing recently? Gotta be Shine, because I wrote that one with my wife. So that was a lot of fun because she's a great actress. She's a voiceover actress, and she did a couple of my audiobooks. If you ever listened to my Haunted Mystery series, she did the narration for those. And she also appears in the Audible originals I did, like Riley Mack and the Other Known Troublemakers, which, by the way, is free right now. Audible's doing this really cool thing. So if you have kids at home and looking for something to do, Audible has over 100 audiobooks free for kids, and Riley Mack and the Other Known Troublemakers is one of those. And JJ plays Riley's mother, and I play a small part in that as well. And there's another one coming out in a couple of weeks, right? Yeah, coming out, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks in May, called Stuck. And we're both in that one too. So that will be fun. All right. So those are the most fun to do. Someone wants my shirt. It took me a while to get this shirt. This shirt was on back order, which made me be very proud of Tennessee, because everybody wanted one of these shirts. Oh, someone really liked the film. I don't know if you mean Escape from Mr. Limoncello's Library. That's also, it was started on Nickelodeon, but now you can watch it on Netflix, and I think Amazon Prime and some other places. Let's see here. So there are some new books coming out. As I said earlier, the next Limoncello book will be coming out in August 25th. And if you're solving the puzzle in the fourth Limoncello book, the deadline for that is next Wednesday, I believe. Next Wednesday will be the deadline for entering that competition. And everyone who figures out the hidden puzzle in the fourth book have sent me an email, and we're going to draw one name out of a hat, and who that name is will get 4 autographed copies, the first 4 books in the Limoncello series, and they will also get an autographed manuscript of the 5th Limoncello book, which is not coming out until August. All right. That's my process. There we go. They're based on people I know off top. I read that one. Woody Page. Let's see here. It took Tiffany Horn Fannin 2 months to get her bully-free shirt. Wore it last week. This is one of my first times wearing it. Actually, I usually wear a black shirt. I don't know why. I guess because I live in New York City, and it's a law here. We all have to dress in black at all times. So yeah, it's been fun. Like for me, just remembering my time back at UT. And when I won that Distinguished Alumni Award, I gave a little talk. I remembered my glory days on the football field, running across the AstroTurf, making it towards the goal line, and the security guard tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Don't do that, young fellow." But I do remember what was neat about the University of Tennessee in Knoxville was there were so many opportunities to try everything. Like I tried to be on the radio. I did WUOT because I had my radio license, and I thought maybe I want to be a disc jockey. But back when I first got there in like 1969, 1970, I did get to be WUOT. Mostly played classical music, but on Friday nights they played jazz, and I learned to say that's so-and-so on saxophone, someone else on alto sax. You had to say the word on a lot. And then there was an obscure rock and roll show they did on Saturday nights. We were supposed to play avant-garde, sort of atonal stuff that nobody really wanted to listen to, but that's what the rules were. But one night, I slipped in Hey Jude. I was just tired of listening to all this German punk something or other, and I played Hey Jude, and I got fired. That was the first job I ever got fired from, except when I mowed lawns and did it after it rained and did a horrible job. But I got fired from a job because I did what I wanted to do instead of what they told me to do. And I kind of said, well, you know what? Did I really want that job? And just the chance to fail, to try at something and fail or succeed is one of the great things that I'll always remember about going to UT Knoxville. There were so many opportunities. I got to act in all those shows. I got to write a play that we did at the, I used to call it the Lab Theater, that little lab theater on the side of the Clarence Brown Theater. I did a play called Revival that we did there. I did get to write for the newspaper. And you get to try all this stuff and you find out, well, maybe I'm better at this than I am at that. And I really do trace a lot of my success as an author, or just the fact that I have the discipline to do this, to my days in Knoxville, and it's been fun. So I'm gonna see if there's any more questions there. If not, well, this has been kind of fun to take over the Facebook page of my alma mater. You guys all stay safe and wash your hands. Ooh, I think I better wash mine. They're a little cheesy right now. Thank you guys so much, and thanks for all the questions, and thanks for reading my books.